Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Good morning, good day, hello, how are you, howdy. It is the Michael Dukes Show. It is the Wednesday edition of the big radio program. Hi, and good morning to you here as we jump into things local, state, and more across the big state of Alaska right here on the Michael Dukes Show, where you'll find us on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com each and every morning. You can find links to the audio-only podcast, the audio-only live stream, and, of course, links to all our social media sites on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, where we simulcast the radio show each and every morning right here. And also, of course, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station, and or FM translator. Good morning. It's it's time. It's time to dive into it and to get into some of the headlines and discussions and talking points for for the week. Let's get into it and figure things out and talk about stuff. We are going to cover a lot of the headlines here this morning in hour one. We're going to talk a little bit more about the latest on the Alaska Airlines and the Boeing 737 MAX situation, which is affecting a lot of people here in the state of Alaska and across the country, and will continue to do so. We're also going to talk about the renaming of the Port of Anchorage to honor Don Young, which has gotten a lot. I mean, people get wrapped up in things sometimes, and it just kind of boggles my mind that these are the things that we're worrying about. But I mean, it's getting done. We'll also talk about the push to try and increase the minimum wage here in the state of Alaska yet again. And finally, we'll also go over some of the priorities and some of the new bills that have been put forward already that are pre-filed for the legislative session, which starts just less than a week. It'll be starting this next Tuesday. And now we've seen some more of the pre-filed bills that are coming in, and I got some questions. I got some comments and some questions on that. Then in hour two, we're going to dive into it with State Senator Mike Shower, who will be joining us to give us his thoughts on the upcoming legislative session and where he thinks it's all going from here. What's happening with it here in the next, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, I don't know how many months. It's supposed to be 120 days, 121 days, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I mean, it's an election season, so it's a good bet that they'll try and get out of there on time this year because it benefits them. God, I sound so cynical, right? I mean, it's only January the 10th, and I've already kind of lost my happy thought for the year. Not really, but it just feels like I was going to try and be so positive this whole year, and it's January 10th, and I already feel like I'm a grumpy old man. I got the old man part down. I got that thing. I got it done. All right. All right. So we're going to continue to hit on these things and go through this. And I hope you'll stick with us here this morning as we go through all this kind of stuff and see what's happening. Feel free to join us out on the internet if you've got time this morning. If you'd like to participate, it's another way to participate in the show, and that is in the chat room. which is available on YouTube or it's available on Facebook. Either one of those, you can go in there and you can join a bunch of the other listeners that are hanging out with us this morning and talking about things and listening. And I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. We get a chance during the commercial breaks to catch up and chat a little bit about stuff, sometimes stuff that we're not even talking about on the radio. And there's always something good in there, always something good. So feel free to dial it up. Facebook.com/Michael Duke Show/live if you want to be part of it right away. That's how you do it here this morning. Okay. So where do we get started? I guess we should start off with the story about the 737 MAX 9 jets. Now, this is interesting. Now, Alaska, of course, pretty unique in its situation here. The only other state in the union that's as dependent or more so on air travel than Alaska is, of course, Hawaii. But we're seeing some serious, some concerning issues. Let's put it that way. The FAA has now extended the grounding of some of the 737 MAX 9 MAX jetliners. They've taken all the 9s offline, essentially, adding pressure to Boeing and one of their subcontractors. The subcontractor that makes the fuselage and installs the panel on the fuselage that blocks one of the exit rows that are not being used if the plane doesn't have enough seats in it. Investigators now know the sequence of events that led to the blowout on Friday night, but they don't know the cause. A key question is whether the bolts that were used to help secure the panel, called a door plug, were installed. The NTSB investigators say the bolts have not been recovered, and the agency won't know if they were even in place until the door plug is examined at a laboratory. According to, adding to Boeing's problems, Alaska Airlines and United Airlines, the two U.S. carriers that fly the MAX 9, reported after the updated and intensified inspections required by the NTSB and the FAA, they reported finding loose bolts and other hardware in other panels. So reassuring. Suggesting quality issues with the door plugs may not be limited to just one aircraft. The plugs are installed in MAX 9 fuselages by a subcontractor called Spirit Aerosystems, which is actually a subcontractor, but it's a subsidiary of Boeing. They actually spun off from Boeing back in 2005. Unfortunately, Spirit has a history of manufacturing problems, many uncovered in a U.S. House probe of 2 fatal crashes involving Boeing 737 MAX 8 airplanes. This has led some on the investigating committee to say that the focus really needs to turn to Spirit Aerospace, that Boeing has been happy with the crappy stuff from Spirit because apparently it's cheap. The process of inspecting MAX 9s and returning them to service has been slower than Alaska and United had hoped. Again, the FAA had grounded all MAX 9s in the U.S. on Saturday, but Boeing didn't provide inspection instructions until Monday. On Tuesday, yesterday, the FAA said those instructions were being revised because of feedback and extended the grounding of the plane. That, of course, in turn has led to additional turmoil. United said yesterday that it canceled 170 flights because of grounding. Alaska said it scrubbed 109 flights, which, again, being the fact that we are pretty dependent on air travel to get anywhere out of the state without going through a foreign country, it's an issue. It's definitely an issue. During the briefing on late Monday, NTSB officials described how the plug on Alaska Flight 1282 rolled up and flew off the plane. Apparently, there's 4 bolts that are supposed to prevent the door from rolling up, and then 12 connecting points where they're supposedly connect the plug and the door to the frame and everything else, and that they don't know exactly what's going on. Now, it's not clear whether Spirit Aerosystems or Boeing technicians last worked on the door plug, which could be open for maintenance. It said, according to the FAA, that it was unlikely that Alaska Airlines themselves, their maintenance crew, worked on the plug because this plane was brand spanking new. They literally took delivery of this plane in late October. It had its first commercial flight in November. So this plane is like less than 3 months old. And this happened, which is not raising, it's just not raising my confidence level in what's going on with Boeing. Now, this is going to obviously put more pressure on Boeing. The new CEO, David Calhoun, was brought in to help the company get past the crises created by the MAX 8 crashes, which we talked about previously. So far during his tenure, Boeing has lost $23 billion and struggled with manufacturing flaws, which, I mean, come on, people. Come on. This is crazy stuff. No one was hurt aboard that Friday incident where the door plug got sucked off of the airplane. But it is a wake-up call for Boeing and regulators to act before something worse happens. Some former Boeing employees and outsiders who've examined the company say its safety record and culture have degraded after a 1997 merger that left many McDonnell Douglas leaders in charge. And Spirit Aerosystems' record is likely to also come under more scrutiny. It's really, that really a tough situation. Shares of Boeing fell 1% on Tuesday, a day after they plunged 8%. As Spirit Aerosystems lost 11% of its value on Monday. And this is, I don't know if it's poor design, sloppy work, or whatever, but this is an airplane traveling at 500 and something miles an hour with a bunch of people on board. I think that they may want to, pay a little bit closer attention to what's going on here. So if you're traveling, expect delays. That's all I'm saying. Expect some delays, and you may want to say a little prayer on the way by, because this thing is, I mean, brand spanking new airplane. Hardly anybody broke the leather in it except for them. It's astonishing. And I'm just, I've never been afraid to fly, but even I might climb on board there and go, where's the exit row? Can I sit away from that as far as possible? And then make sure I'm strapped in. Oof, man, what a wild ride that must have been. I can't even imagine at this point. I just don't even know. Some people in the chat room are like, I don't think I want to fly anytime soon. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I'm definitely with you on that. I'm glad I'm not flying anytime soon on this situation. All right, we got more coming up, including the tussle over the port of Anchorage on, of all things, the naming rights. Well, not the naming rights, but what should the name be? And I just find it, well, I don't know if I should say entertaining. I find it interesting, the things that we are literally fighting over these days. We'll be back with more in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense, Liberty Base, Free Thinking Radio. We'll return with more right after this. Senator Mike Shower coming up in hour 2. We'll return right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Let me see what are you talking about here? I didn't even see that story. Didn't even see that story there, Brian. Thank you for the heads up on it. I tell you where there's some other figures away from the potentially eminent domain. Why would pick this fight? Interesting. Huh. Well, that's a interesting. We're going to get. We'll get to that. Okay. Thank you, Brian, for the heads up on the Lyman Hoffman story. I didn't even see that story. Okay. Which is why it's nice to have you guys with me every morning because, you're the smartest people in the world. First, for listening to this program. That's not self-serving at all. And also, of course, for helping me stay on top of things that I miss. I love it. I love it. Okay. 0 degrees. Yeah, no, it's a little crispy this morning. I mean, it was like, 27 degrees the other day, and now it's 3 degrees. I was like, probably heard my, in fact, I'm going to turn it back on during the commercial break because my studio was a little chilly this morning. No direct heat in the studio. And so I got in here this morning. I was like, whoa. Chris says, not a fan of flying. Not even our little planes from Seldovia. We go by boat. Well, yeah, it's one of those things. 6 here in North Palmer. It's supposed to get down into the minus 20, 30s in Fairbanks. Fort Yukon's supposed to be like highs of 38 below or something, 47 below on the lows. It just can't make up its mind. That's the thing. It just can't make up its mind. Minus 15 degrees right now, minus 24 with wind chill, says Jeffrey, up in Fairbanks right now. Remember the one top came off the plane at Way of Hawaiian? Yeah, that was the convertible Hawaiian Airlines. That was the convertible airplane that had the top come off. That was horrible. I mean, they lost a couple people. They lost a flight attendant and somebody else. I know that she got sucked right out of the airplane. It peeled up like right above her and she was gone. That's a hell of a way to go, man. Just think about that for a minute. Yeah. But again, statistically, air travel still the safest way to pretty much go anywhere. Jack says, I have to fly Thursday night to Oklahoma City. Not helping. Sorry, Jack. Sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. I think I'm caught up. Here this morning. Good morning. Morning to everybody. I saw Bill. Bill, how'd your procedure go? I hope your back is feeling better. I ended up, I'll tell you a story. I ended up spending 4 hours at the dentist yesterday. I broke one of my teeth. And yikes, man. My whole face hurts this morning. 4 hours in the chair yesterday, and I'm like, oh. Anyway, all good now. It's all good. All right. It was a Boeing 737 in 1988. That was the convertible Hawaiian Airlines thing. Was I in a fight? Yes. Fight for my life. No, I wasn't in a fight. Just apparently my teeth getting old. Bit on the wrong thing at the wrong point. That's what does it every time. All right, here we go. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it. Okay. Okay. Welcome back. It is the Wednesday edition of the Michael Duke Show. State Senator Mike Shower is going to be joining us in hour two. Right now, we're going over some of the headlines that are going on around the state. Talked about, I just went through that whole story, and then there's a bunch of people in the chat room who said, well, I got to fly in the next couple of days. You're not helping me. I'm sorry. I'm just wanted you to make a informed decision before you decided to climb on an airplane. You know, it amazes me how far politics, divided as we are across this country on so many things. I like to think that there is, I would like to think personally for myself in interpersonal relationships that there's nobody that I couldn't get along with, regardless of what their political views are. We can always find some kind of common ground on something, but man, it is just in everything we do. It's pretty astonishing. But the city of Anchorage, the municipality, which it's a first-class city, so it's a borough municipality, all wrapped up into one. Unlike most of the places in Alaska where the boroughs around the cities are second-class boroughs, Anchorage, it's a first-class borough. So that means it's all one and done. It's the borough and the city all wrapped up into one. So they have the assembly, the municipal assembly. And, they take the cake over the last couple of years for this infighting, for this, this polarization that we're seeing, this divisiveness. Of course, the backlash started when the citizens, who I think in a lot of ways were getting sick and tired of some of the things that were happening in the city, decided to hire elect a mayor that was, kind of on the right-leaning conservative side, Dave Bronson. And that's just touched off so much. It's just so much. It's just a continuous fight. We were talking here, was it last week or the week before, about all these ads that you're seeing on YouTube and everything else about, Mayor Bronson is just bad for, it started, this is like people outside the city are seeing this kind of stuff. It's an attack. Well, but they can fight about the damnedest things. So the Anchorage Assembly, since March of 2022, has been deciding whether or not to rename the Port of Alaska, formerly the Port of Anchorage, now the Port of Alaska, to rename it after the late U.S. Representative Don Young. And the stories in both the ADN and the KTUU go over this and talk about it. And this thing reads like some kind of it's like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington saga of, it's this and that. Some members have wanted to postpone the decision. They've already postponed it apparently a couple of times through procedural, issues and everything else. Some members on Tuesday night wanted to postpone the decision until February or March. So then the mayor sounds off and he gets upset about it. He vetoes it because they passed that to begin with. Then he vetoes it. Then they don't have enough votes to override the veto. And it just goes on and on and on. Now, I guess, should I throw my 2 cents in? Should I do that? It is my show. I suppose I should be able to do that. I don't care. I just really, how much is it going to cost to rebrand the whole Port of Alaska to now be the Don Young Port of Alaska? How much is that going to cost us to put up the name up in lights and redo all the letterhead and the business cards and, the website? And it's the self-aggrandizement. It's not, that's not the right way to put it, because it's not Don Young specifically calling back from the grave and saying, name it after me or else. But who cares what a building, a facility, a piece of, who cares what it's called? I guess it's an honor. I had always, one of the greatest men in my life, personally, I felt like was my grandfather, who was, from Fairbanks. I mean, I would have, if you had asked me, to name a building, I probably would have named it after my grandfather because he had such an impact on my life. But other than that, that's the only time. I mean, who cares if you go to Ted Stevens International Airport or just Anchorage International Airport? Right? I mean, what is it? What is it? But these people, 2 years, they've been fighting over this. And and some of it's ideological. They don't mention it in the they don't mention it in the ADN article, but let me go over to the KTUU article because they make a comment about that in there that it looks like it's more about that it's more symbolic. What did he say? They basically said I'm trying to find it. Anyway, they basically say that, some people liked him, some people didn't like him, that this may have been more about personality or politics than anything else. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's almost everything these days. We're renaming. So first of all, I would just say, if I was on an assembly and they put this up in front of me, my first question would be, how much is it going to cost to do this? I mean, whether I liked the person or not, we're going to name it after you, Dukes. Well, first of all, why? Second of all, how much is that going to cost? And does that even make sense? I just don't even know. And it does it really matter? Is that, okay, great. People now in the future knows that he did. Don Young will always be synonymous with Alaska. You cannot be a congressman for a state for 40 plus and be the only congressman for a state and be there for 44 plus years and not have your name inexorably tied with the rest of the state. And, great. It's an honorific. And I'm not trying to be mean, but who cares? When I first heard about this, I'm like, really? Don't you guys have other things to be worried about? Oh, don't worry though. Don't worry. After the assembly finally approved the name change to the port on a vote of 10-2 with Meg Zalatel and Bronga, what's her last name? Karen Bronga, after they voted against it, and they're the ones that have been really postponing that more than anything else. Don't worry, they got down to the heady business of what the assembly really needs to do. The top priority for the next couple of assembly meetings is getting bond proposals approved to be put on the ballot because they need more money. So they got ballot initiative questions that are there, funding for public safety improvements, road and storm drain capital projects, parks and rec service area improvements, area-wide public safety, transit improvements, the bathrooms. Don't forget about the bathrooms for the homeless at $500,000 apiece. I mean, all that stuff. That's the important stuff. So they eventually got, but I just, again, to me, this would have been, okay, well, if you got to do it, just do it and get it over with. Right? I mean, why have we been how much of the assembly's time has been burned up in the last 2 years going over this? Because it's been nearly it's March, 2 years ago, March. So for the last 22 months, you guys have been fighting this thing and rolling over it and going over it and doing it. It just makes no sense whatsoever why they would fight over this kind of stuff. Because in the long run, I mean, who really cares? I mean, do you care? As a listener, do you, as an Alaskan, care that whether a port or a building or an airport or an office building or something is named for someone or not? To me, it just makes no sense whatsoever. And then one of my listeners this morning hit me up with this story. Speaking of the Port of Alaska, And I had not even, I don't think I'd even heard of this. A powerful state senator from Bethel introduced a bill last year for the state to take over Anchorage's port, where most of the physical stuff shipped to Alaska arrives. Something like 85 or 90% of all physical goods coming into the state are coming through the port of Anchorage, Port of Alaska. But Lyman Hoffman, the bill's unofficial sponsor, would have a different take on it. They would have the state take ownership of the Port of Alaska, taking the infrastructure away from the city and giving it to the state, potentially through eminent domain. Now, so far, he hasn't said anything publicly about this bill. He just filed it. And that was 8 months ago. The legislature is now gearing up for its next session. And according to KTOO, Anchorage officials are still in the dark about why state lawmakers would want to pick this fight. The chair of the assembly, Chris Constant, says the state's going to do what the state's going to do, and it's going to be the legal fight of the century when we demand that they provide consideration for the taking. If they, in fact, move on that goal, it's going to be a very interesting fight. So apparently they're already geared up and ready to go. The state Senate spent 14 seconds last May introducing the bill for the port takeover, and it was referred to two committees. And that was the entirety of the public discussion that the legislature had about the bill. But apparently it got somebody's attention. So, it's just one of those things. Assembly member Meg Zalatel, who chairs the local committee that oversees the port, she invited Senator Hoffman to discuss it in her committee in November. One of Hoffman's staffers told her in an email that they weren't ready. Then staff for the senator's office said no one would be available to interview for the story in KTUU until the legislature goes back in session. The bill says the cash-strapped state would pick up the legal cost to continue fighting the case over the botched expansion of the project. The trial court judge had decided back in 2022 that the feds owe the city more than $367 million to try and fix some of the problems at the port. But the question is, why? Why would the state need to take over more of the, why? Nobody seems to know. It's a big fat question mark as to why the state should take over the Port of Anchorage. Not that I'm saying that the city is doing, a bang. I'm kind of ambivalent. I mean, whether it's good or bad. My question is why, if there's a need for it, why don't we? Never mind. I'm not even going to start the whole privatization battle. I'm not even going to do it. That would be the slippery slope for this morning for me to go off on the rails and do all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's just another interesting thing. So here we go. Here we go again. Another interesting thing. Let's see what's going on. And doing it through eminent domain, that seems a little hostile to me. Doesn't it to you? That they would even suggest just in the bill that they would just take it through eminent domain? That seems a little bit hostile in the long run, but we'll have to see where that goes through. All right, we got to go. We got more coming up. State Senator Mike Shower at the top of the hour. Up next, we're going to go through some of the other pre-filed bills that are now coming up with the session only 6 days away from the start of the legislative session. It's going to be, buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be an interesting one. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Waste of time. Waste of time. Waste of time. Yeah, Bill, if I've had those, if you're talking, did you get Bill's talking? I was asking Bill about his procedure for his back, for his injections in his back. Is that the bilateral injection? Is that what you got, was the bilateral steroid injection? Because I've had those, and boy, howdy, did they help. They definitely helped when I needed it the most. It definitely helped. So I'm hoping if that was what you got, I know that will give you some relief, especially in the short term, but even in the long term, it will give you some definite relief. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. I think when Shower can't show, you should get Naresh, his chief of staff, on. That would be fun, says Gail. Well, I mean, yeah, except nobody ever wants their staff to go on. They don't want to put them under that kind of scrutiny or microscope. Brian says air quotes on that, please, on that phrase. I don't know what phrase it was, Brian, but that caught my eye. Thank you, says Terry. Who gives two poops? Who gives two poops about what some building or facility or ship or dining hall or, flower or work bench in some park? Who cares what it's named? Who cares? Who cares about any of that? Amy says, who's going to pay for it? Oh, Amy, here's what you do. You go into this little room in your house that's called the bathroom, and you look over the sink and you look in the mirror. That's who's paying for it. And that's the thing. How much does it cost to rebrand a whole facility? Right? I mean, how much does it cost to rebrand business cards for the people that work there, full websites, all the letterheads, the physical, do they have to put a statue of him up there? Do they have to put it on big letters on the side of the building? Do they have to, how much is involved in that? What is the cost of something like that? Michael says, I would just vote it down because it means absolutely nothing. What a waste of time. Almost as good as when Juno came up with Marmot Day. That was the big thing that got done. Yeah, wait, I thought it was Congress Critter. They are Congress Critters. They're lemmings. Lemmings. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's... I'll just leave this here. That's Brian's comment on the assembly infighting. It's not fighting. It's more. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's see. Those are yard apes, not marmots. Hoffman never does public meetings he's not in control of. He hasn't had a town hall meeting since 2002. And how does he keep getting real? That's inertia right there, baby. That is apathy and inertia is what that is. That was just... if the state wants a port, maybe they should think about buying up the Point McKenzie port and developing that. Yeah. It was a steroid injection right in the freaking tailbone. They used the CT scanner. That's exactly what I've had. Not in the tailbone, but bilateral on both sides of my lowest vertebrae. It definitely helps. Definitely helps when I was in some of the most excruciating pain in my life. Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, first class city. Put first class city in air quotes. Oh man, it's just so crazy. We rebranded, this is Jim, we rebranded an elementary school in North Pole, but kept the roads and other businesses with the old name. I mean, because the whole place is all around it is all named the original name, and now they've changed the name. I mean, why? Why do you? Yep, don't understand, man. Do not understand the appeal. When I'm dead, I won't care. I'm just saying right now, when I'm dead, I won't care what my name is doing because I will be on to other things. It just, I just don't know. Don't know at all. What is the point? Okay, we got to go. We're jumping back into it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all the stuff. Let's get to it. Here we go. No, I mean now. Here we go. Okay. This is the perfect comment. We were just talking about the name change at the Port of Anchorage, Port of Alaska, yada, yada, yada. And, somebody said, why care about this? Why care about having somebody's name? And Politics in the chat room says, why care? It's only other people's money. I mean, okay, so if you're going to name a building or a facility or something after someone from the very start, a grade school or something, okay, great. From the very start, fine, we did it. We decided it's, Joe Reddington Middle School or whatever it is. Okay, great. Great. But when you're going to go ahead and keep changing things around and renaming things down the road, it's just a waste of money. I mean, I don't know how much it costs. $100,000 maybe, in the long run, website revamp and everything else. And like I said, business cards for everybody that works there, because no longer can it just say the Port of Alaska or Port of Anchorage. It's got to be the Don Young Port of Anchorage. And, but then you got to put a building, you got to put signs up, you got to maybe a statue of Don Young out on the middle of the pier somewhere or something. I don't know. But what is it? What difference does it make? Just one of those things. All right, well, let's take a crack here at some of the bills that have been pre-filed for the legislative session. And this will just be a little bit of a tease. Mike Shower will be covering, I'm sure, some of these things coming up in the next segment because he's going to be joining us for hour 2 of the big radio program for today. We'll be talking with him about that. And of course, we know already what some of the big issues are going to be. The last month, the end of the year, the ADN ran an article talking about some of the big things that are going to happen. But we know that even the article even quotes Governor Dunleavy in December when they asked him about his sales tax proposal that he talked about earlier in 2023, but never delivered to anybody. He said, well, we're now in an election year. I don't know how much momentum is going to occur this year. I mean, they just already know this is going to be probably as close to a rubber stamp as you can get. I would predict at this point, they're going to try and rush through this thing and get it done as quickly as possible so they can get back out onto the street to run for re-election for next year. I could see that already, for this year's re-election for next year's session. But of course, the big ones we know about, right? So school funding, that's going to be huge. I'm sure it's already going to be the big push. You can see it already. They're still talking about it. There's still a lot of, angst about all this stuff. No accountability in any of those things. And I'm sure we could talk with Mike about that because I know that at one point he had offered an amendment to one of the school BSA funding questions where he basically said, hey, we'll vote for it. Just, let's put some accountability and some requirements in here that the money has to go into the classroom or and that went nowhere. Also, of course, the PFD, as it has every year since 2016, so we're into the 8th year now, that will be bandied about. Instead of following the formula that's in statute and following the law, they're going to bat it around like a wiffle ball for, probably the length of the entire session, however long the session is, whether it's 90 days or 120 or 200, whatever it is. I'm sure that will be the one issue that continues to suck up all the oxygen in the room will be the PFD. And of course, the Senate has already spoken. They've said that's part of their fiscal plan. 75-25, that's our fiscal plan. I don't think they're going to want to move off that, and they're going to try and strong arm. I will say that there will be one bone of contention, and that will be the fact that the Senate is still going to try and strong arm the House on this. I could see this still happening. There's so much hubris over there. So much hubris. The walrus is, it's my way or the highway. Okay. All right. I got it. Then we're going to talk about, they don't call it in the ADN article. They say staffing shortages, which I've got questions about this commentary about staffing shortages. And this, of course, is the proposal to revamp the retirement program and return to a defined benefits program, which, again, by the way, is estimated to cost us, what did Donna say? Donna, you told me earlier, $1.2 billion is the fiscal note on the defined benefits program. Oh, yeah, let's add another $1.2 billion in expenditures to the state budget when we're already $600-700 million down. Let's add another $1.2 billion in fiscatory issue. Let's just do that. Anyway, it's a problem. Now, Ben Carpenter is proposing a new change to the defined contribution plan to bring it more in line with something that's more attractive, apparently with the help from the Reason Foundation, which I hadn't heard about, which is I'm excited about at this point. I keep feeling like anytime we start seeing that kind of stuff, that maybe we're having an effect. I mean, we're having all these people from Reason on all the time and everything else, and now all of a sudden the Reason is helping. I have a feeling that, makes me feel good. Makes me feel like maybe we're making some kind of difference on that. So anyway, defined benefits is a given. Ranked choice voting. Now, the battle is going to be with the ballots and everything else. I mean, is it going to be taken on through the legislature? I don't know. Sarah Vance has still got that bill to repeal the ranked choice voting system, although it didn't go anywhere last year, and probably not going to go anywhere this year. More than likely. I would be surprised if anything happened, considering it's an election year. Then you got the rail belt energy issues, which of course is the Cook Inlet natural gas. A lot of these big federal projects where they're going to try and build out more infrastructure for energy and everything else. But that's pretty much, those are the big things that are coming down the pike. Now, interesting. Here are some of the pre-filed bills. These are just a few of the interesting ones. Of course, George Rauscher has pre-filed legislation to eliminate royalties paid by producers in the Cook Inlet. So there's your energy bills. That's one of the ones that's going to come forward. The Jesse Sumner, the Republican from Wasilla, maybe I should use air quotes around that. The Republican from Wasilla has a bill that would set aside permanent fund earnings to pay up to 25% for state ownership in a gas line. He wants the state to build it or direct it or have a big share in it, and basically would lock the PFD into $1,000 per person until the state ownership is paid for, which, I mean, when would that be? So those are two of the things on the energy side. You've got education bills that are out there. They've got school funding has been a major topic. They're set to debate boosting the state's per-student funding formula, the BSA. 2 education bills have been pre-filed ahead of the 2024 session. Currently, the state is limited to using 8 years of out-of-state teaching experience as a substitute for in-state experience. Rebecca Himshoot, Representative Himshoot, is a non-affiliated legislator from Sitka. She's a Democrat. That would eliminate those restrictions. Will Stapp from Fairbanks, a Republican, introduced a bill that would create a fund to address the University of Alaska's deferred maintenance backlog, estimated to be over $1.4 billion. It would set aside, the bill would follow the university's own strategy, which would set aside $35 million each year to maintain older buildings. Why they even allow this kind of stuff to happen? We should have Will on to talk about that, because that just is. Senator Forrest Dunbar, run, Forrest, run, pre-filed legislation to study how psychedelic medicines could be used to address Alaska's mental health crisis. Now, this is an interesting thing to me personally, because I have some friends that have advocated for psilocybin use and MDMA and other things for the treatment of PTSD. Reason had a whole thing on this, how they're finding that PTSD and depression can be treated with, ketamine and psilocybin and MDMA and some of these other things. I don't know why we wouldn't do that. Just if it will help people, I'm for that. There's clinical trials that are encouraging to see how some of these medicines can be used for those kind of treatments. This would be a bill in both the House and the Senate that would direct the new task force to examine how to legalize and to regulate those situations. So, it's not just willy-nilly. That's an interesting bill. And more. I guess we'll pick this up with Mike Shower on the other side. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Brian says it's good to know George Rauscher is still alive. You just haven't heard much from him. All right. Why not pay people their PFD and allow them to invest in the gas line? Well, Barbara, let me tell you why. Because that would allow them to make their own decisions. And don't you know, silly owl, that's not the best. They know better than you how to spend that money. That's the thing. That's the thing right there. That's the whole point. Could psychedelics be used to address the legislators' anti-PFD stance? ? Yeah. That's a good question. That's an excellent question. Oh, man. Well, I'm interested to see. I am seriously interested in, because I have had some friends, former veterans, who have used they've been part of some of these psychedelics and the psilocybins and some of these other things for the treatment of PTSD and some of the other issues. And there's been some really encouraging stuff, some very interesting things. And I, for one, think that it's a time to take that stigma away and allow people to try it out and to see if those kind of treatments can be done on a much larger scale. I want people to be healthy. I want people to, get out of their minds and be ready to go. Right to try. Yeah, exactly. Brian just said the right to try. That's what it is. It should be the right to try. If I want to try it and I'm not hurting anybody else, then I should be able to try it. I've seen how these things affect people in their lives and how just traumatic and painful it is. Okay. Let me get this squared away here. I forgot. I got Shower is not coming in via video today. He's coming in via phone. So I got to make sure that disconnect that. Okay. I think I got it. I got it. Let's see if we can get All right, there we go. Let's get Mike Shower. Let's get Mike Shower on the phone, shall we? We're gonna get him on the telephone right now. See if we can get him squared away. We'll get this done early. That way we know it's all good to go. Oh, well, that's disappointing. Let me try it again. No, it says the call is forwarded. Let me see what's going on here. I cannot talk and type at the same time. Okay. All right, we'll try this out here in just a second. Let me go. Maybe he's having a bad hair day. Jeffrey says he has a friend who microdoses, and I don't know if that's on psilocybin or LSD, to keep his bipolar in check. People have done both. People have microdosed both on psilocybin mushrooms and on LSD to keep things in check. And it's I'm all for it. I am all for that kind of stuff. Whatever it could take to make these people feel better. I hate to see anybody in pain or struggling with that kind of stuff. It's astonishing. Uh-oh, my phone just going. Okay. Let me try this again. It says he's around. Let me see if I can call again. Hello? Hello? All right. You have me on... he hung up on me. Had me on permanent ignore. Try this again. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I could hear you. I could hear you before.
Huh.
I thought I was on permanent ignore or something.
No, my phone is not cooperating this morning.
No, it literally did not even ring. It just went straight, said forwarded straight to voicemail. I was like, okay, that's how it is.
I kept touching the screen, stuff going black, and then it went white, and it went black. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. We'll make it happen. All right, my friend. How's everything going? How's it been? Been a hot minute.
It's been good. It was a good holiday season. Loved it. All of our kids, grandkids, were here visiting, so we had them all under one roof for kind of the Christmas, New Year's. It was great. It's been really good. It's been very nice. I'm working still, but it was a really good break, man.
Oh, good.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm glad, man. That's important to get a little bit of that stuff in there. So we're gonna we'll chat about all that kind of stuff and get things going on. So I'm gonna put you on hold for a second here. Don't go anywhere. I can't hear you now, so you're on hold. Just hang out, and we'll be to you here in just a hot second as we get ready. We are about 30 seconds out from restarting the show. Okay. All right. Well, we're ready to go. Hour 2, State Senator Mike Shower. We'll talk about some of the things that are coming up. And we'll just riff. I guess we'll just riff about everything that's happening. Don't go anywhere. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. The Michael Duke Show continues.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Hump day, middle of the week. Ready for that downhill slide to Firearms Friday? Yeah, me too. I'm ready to go. Joining us this morning for the first time, 2024. In fact, we missed him at the end of the year. Is our friend State Senator Mike Shower, who comes on to join us this morning to talk about wood ticks, lunatics, and politics. I don't know how all those things work, but we're gonna get the full rundown here this morning. Mike Shower, State Senator from District O, joins us for these kinds of discussions, and let's just kick things off right now. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. I deal with at least two of those three things on a regular basis.
Well, let's see. There's no wood ticks in the thing, so there must be something.
Ding, ding,
else.
ding. Winner.
Winner, chicken dinner. All right. So I guess we should get caught up from the end of last year. You and I guess last time we talked, we really didn't talk about politics. It was end of the year, going up into the holiday break and everything else. So how was your vacation? How was the holidays? How's things been going in the life of Dozer? Is it all you've dreamed of and more?
Well, you dreamed of. Like I was telling you on the break, it was first time in probably a decade where we have all of our kids and grandkids were up visiting, had them all under one roof for Christmas, New Year's holiday season. So, we were talking about just that, how I really love that time of year, the Christmas lights, putting them up and all the stuff you do. And we just had a lot of fun. It was a really nice break. Great to have all the kids, like some grandkids, because that's just something that's just too rare, being up here and people traveling and all that. And, no doors had blown out of aircraft fuselages yet. So, they were able to travel back and forth freely.
Right.
So that was good. And, it was a good day. But anyway, it was really nice. Like I said, no politics, didn't do too much of that, and focused on family. We had a good time. How about you? How was it?
It was blissful. I think what was it? I guess it was 12, 13 days or whatever it was that I was officially on vacation. I left the house exactly twice, and only because my wife told me to. She asked me to go. I had to go get my son at one point, and I had to go buy something for some last-minute ingredient that, of course, I said, "Do you have everything?" "I have everything." And then the next morning, it's like, "Oh, my God, I don't have this." So, I had to go get it. Luckily, that was a 2-minute jaunt down the road to Three Bears, and I was back at it again. But, it was great. That's always, I find that to be the most restorative time of the year, the most restive. I put everything out of my mind, all my worries and everything else. I just said, I'm going to focus on that on January 2. And between now and then, I'm not even going to think about those things. And that is really, it's one of those times when it's just a mental load off. I don't know how I do it every year because I got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of balls in the air. But there's always, I somehow am able to just pull that plug out and say, not even going to think about it for 2 weeks. And, it was blissful. I always feel a lot better after that period because then I can go back to worrying for the rest of the year. 50 weeks a year I can worry, and then 2 weeks a year I just, why me worry? No, it's good. So I feel better, made a few decisions, thought about life, did my New Year's resolution, and here we are. Did you do any New Year's resolutions?
Hey, you kidding me? No way. Zero.
Did you resolve to survive until next New Year's? That's pretty much the only resolution?
I decided I was not going to be, in the circus. No, wait a minute, I'm doing that. I'm not going to deal with lunatics. Wait a minute, that's not an option. Just no, I don't have any. I have no New Year's resolutions. I've never really done that. I'm just like, you know what? 2024 is going to be a new year. I know this is going to be a pretty wild ride, I think, based on everything that's happening statewide, national, international. It's going to be a crazy year, Mike. So I
Yeah.
think,
Yep.
where do you prosper? Where do you focus? It's just going to be interesting. Like I said, it's a rebuilding year for the Senate minority. So
Right.
like a NFL team that needs to have some good new hires,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
good
You're not.
prospects.
That's right. You're not expecting a Super Bowl win out of a team who's in a building year. I mean, even I know that. I'm not a football guy, but even I know that you don't expect much out of a team that's in a building cycle. Well, so maybe we should start there, Mike. Maybe we should start by building some expectations for this upcoming session. Now, we've talked about it a bit here on the program over the last 8-9 days. Of course, the session starts in a week, Tuesday of next week. The session starts, and I know a lot of people come back, after last year and the disappointment and things that went on, and they're like, okay, well, this year we'll get them. But I mean, I think we need to manage expectations because nothing has fundamentally changed. The makeup of the bodies have not changed. The organization and the leadership of the body have not really changed. So, how different do you really expect it to be this year from last year? Give us
Well,
manage some of our expectations here.
yeah, I think your audience, Mike. I mean, most of the time you have about the same people. I mean, the ones that comment. I mean, I know there's others listening, so your regular listeners are not going to be surprised or shocked, and they're a little more educated on the politics and what's happening than the average bear in Alaska. So I don't think that anything we would say this morning they're going to go, "Oh, I didn't expect that to happen." So there's nothing like that, which I think is a good, kind of the spoiler alert into the movie at the beginning. So we like you said, no leadership changes in the body, no shuffling as far as who's in what positions, no changes to committees. There's some new bills that will be dropped, but most of those won't go anywhere. Like always, because filing a bill, there's a few legislators infamous for that, that file bills and never even bother to do anything with them. It's like, I filed a bill for that. Well, did you do anything? Did you ask for a committee hearing? Did you get it moved in any committees? So, did you get it through the other body? Because once you get through one, you got to start over again in the other one. And so, it's a long process anyways. And when you introduce bills, which I'm going to do, but I'm kind of introducing bills really at this point, especially being in the minority because they won't touch any of our bills, it's kind of a talking point. It's getting it into the public awareness. It's seeing if any of your House friends might pick it up and start running with it, since it's a more friendly body because it's actually has a majority of Republicans in the House. And shocking, Mike, the Republicans are actually in charge of the House, unlike the Senate, which has a slightly different flavor where apparently a lot of Republicans are more aligned with some very left-wing Democrats. So
Right.
while there are more Republicans in the Senate, as some of your listeners, most of them I'm sure are aware, there's actually a Democrat majority control. So the math doesn't work out so well for the Senate. But like you said, nothing's really changed. So, the bills that are going to file, like in our case, a lot of it's just going to be to start raising awareness to it and then hope that next year, maybe there will be a Republican, body, maybe, in the Senate, who knows, and a better chance of moving some stuff. So that's part of it. But there would be a mad dash scramble on the bills that exist already, right, from last year, because, as and most of your listeners do, once your bill, if it doesn't make it in the 2-year session, it dies. Everything dies, and you start over. So you put a lot of work into it, like my election bill, a couple of years, a year and a half ago or so, you know, we got it all the way to the floor after 4 or 5 years of work, and then they Christmas treed it with a bunch of stuff, and we essentially had to kill it because it just had a whole bunch of garbage in it, like they do to it. And unfortunately, at the end, we just couldn't pull it off, even though we got it to the floor. So that happens with all the work. But at the same time, sometimes, as the saying goes, the best thing a legislative body can do is nothing. kind of like the Hippocratic Oath we talked about for the doctor. First, do no harm. So, or what was one of the founders? I forget which one. He said, the people are safest when the legislature is not in session. So there's a lot of great quotes to talk about. But yeah, folks, don't expect anything big or earth shattering. The PFD is going to be small again, I'm sure. Although I predict, as we have every year, Mike, last year, everybody had, 2 years. And so, like in the Senate, you see them abuse their political power and hose their Republican colleagues. Taking the unprecedented step for Senator Hughes and myself of not even handing us a committee, which I don't think has ever happened in that body for any minority member. They always get some work, right? So there's that. So I think that, we'll probably see a slightly softer approach to certain things. I wouldn't be surprised if a few more legislators fall back in love with the PFD again, because they got to go home and tell people how they love it, even though they all voted against it in the Senate last year. So, there'll be some softer probably on the PFD. We'll see. There's going to be, I think, some people with some rhetoric for how, they're fine. We didn't really mean to, silence the voice of 120,000 Alaskans like they did to us. There'll be some scrambling probably of covering your rear, or CYA as it goes. There's going to be some hard votes for some of them, because some of them are going to have to go back that, said they really believed in this or they believe in that. And it's like, going to the Republican convention, you're like, a good example of this, Mike. So, the day before the session starts, because they can't fundraise during the session, legislators can't. There's I think it's nicknamed the Senate and House Republican Fundraiser, held by the Juneau Republican Women's Club. And I'm like, how can you possibly, Mike, if you have an R in front of your name, Republican, as an elected official, or a Republican, muckety muck in the party, how can you possibly hold a Senate Republican fundraiser? Because most of the Republicans gave power to the Democrats. And so you're going to raise money for them as Republicans to what? To watch them go back and allow the Democrats to have power again? That's your plan. Ghostbusters. Follow me. I have a plan. Here.
Yeah.
I've said that on the radio. That's your plan. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, let's get a little more realistic here. If Republicans are going to campaign as Republicans, they're going to tell you they're Republican. They're going to say they support the principles of the party, and then the whole time they're elected in Juneau, they join with the Democrats, act like a Democrat, vote with the Democrats. How come you're still supporting them? How come you're still fundraising for them, giving them money? And I know there's a lot of Republicans, Mike, in the party, up the food chain, that, well, as long as they have an R in front of their name, it's fine. I'm like, no, it's really not, because they're not governing like Republicans. What's the point?
That's like the weakest thing I've ever heard. Well, as long as they have an R instead, I can call myself a toaster. Doesn't mean that I can toast bread. You know what I mean?
Did you assume the culture of a toaster, Mike? How dare you?
How dare you? I like them toasters. They're sexy. I should have married a toaster is what I should have done.
Shiny.
I know, shiny. All right. Mike Shower's our guest. We're coming up on the break. Denise in the chat room just said, just write the check and give it to the Democrats. I mean, it's essentially what you're doing. If you're giving that money to them, it's essentially
they're going to govern that way.
That's exactly what's going to happen. All right. Well, we're up against the break, so let's jump into it. And then when we return, State Senator Mike Shower will continue with us. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We're back with more right after this. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Michael Duke Show/live if you want to be part of the chat room. That's where you can go out this morning and check us out. Back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. State Senator Mike Shower is our guest. Brian says a coffee maker would have been a better choice. Okay, I'm a coffee maker. I mean, I could filter that stuff right through me. Doesn't mean you want to drink it when it's over. Okay, it just doesn't mean
It's sludge, Mike. It's sludge.
Sludge. You definitely do not want to drink the coffee that's coming out of me as a coffee maker. No, I mean it's just insane. It is. And this has been my challenge. We've changed out a tremendous number of legislators. 60% of the legislature in the last 5-6 years have been changed out. And yet we're running up against the same things over and over and over again because there's a specific group of players in there that they're not getting changed out. They're not even getting challenged in their elections. I mean, there's just no and so surprise, 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 it's more of the same. And Mike, I quite honestly don't know how to. I mean, first of all, for example, just as one example, the co-chair of finance is from Sitka. I don't broadcast in Sitka. I mean, nobody down there hears what I have to say unless they're picking it up on the internet. And so can we even have a voice down there? Are those people, it's like a suburb of Seattle. They're more probably connected to Seattle than they are to Alaska. Does it really matter to them? Or are they just fat, dumb, and happy, and they're just going to keep sending the same guy back over and over and over again? I don't know how to affect those things.
I don't know that you can, Mike. I mean, the reality is, like you said, they keep sending the same people back. And it doesn't really matter what that person does. It doesn't matter in a lot of these cases, it seems, that they don't care how they vote. They don't care. I mean, not everybody, obviously. I mean, the race, the Senate district you're talking about, I mean, that race has had a challenger the last couple of times. That challenger always hits about 30%, never gets more than that. And so, there's some people, 3 out of 10, or 35, maybe a third that don't like, what's going on. But, all it takes, Mike, is 50% plus one, and that person goes back. So, and without a strong challenger or a challenger that can't break more than a third of the vote, that's not going to change. That doesn't matter what district you're in. That could be any district. I mean, my district, I had a Republican challenger. It didn't have a Democrat challenger. They knew they weren't going to take this district.
Right.
It was not worth their time.
Although I will say that's been very interesting here. The Mat-Su, one of the reddest districts in the state, probably the Mat-Su and the KPB are probably neck and neck for who's the reddest district in the state. And yet we've got, David Wilson and Jesse Sumner, both of whom have, in my opinion, this is not Mike Shower, this is Michael Dukes, have made some very questionable decisions and supported some very questionable policies that, again, call into question the veracity of their credentials as a Republican. I mean, I'm seriously saying that. Here we are, the reddest districts in the state, and this is what we're sending down there to Juneau. That's problematic. We still could clean our own houses. We don't necessarily have to focus on Sitka or Kodiak / Homer or whatever. We could be focusing right here in the Mat-Su being like, what? Come on, guys. Seriously.
Well, there's some dynamics that are interesting politically, Mike. You mentioned red districts and who's elected and how they go down and what they do. And, the reality is, in a lot of cases, especially the off-year elections, if you have an election where you have a really contentious, which we're going to have this year, obviously, presidential race, it really pulls, again, your audience is smart on this. I mean, it pulls a lot of people to the polls. And so you get that down ballot, effect where, let's say Trump and Biden are on the presidential poll, but you're going to get a lot of conservatives, probably Alaska, showing up. But in an off year, what happens over and over? You get union heavy, more pro-government types, pro-union. Not the unions are all bad, but I'm talking on leadership. And what do? They give their people time off to vote. They tell them how to vote, and it has an effect. I know we got to stop for the bell, but we'll pick it up after the break.
Yeah, it's interesting to say. All right, so we'll continue this discussion on the other side and go from there. I also want to get an update on your election bill and the election report. I'm interested to hear something about that. You may not have an update, or you may have. I mean, that may be part of it. Maybe no update may be the update. Here we go. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
That's just hurtful, man. I mean, I can't believe I paid that guy to do that's just welcome back, the Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Hello, my friends. It's Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week. We're ready to get back into it. State Senator Mike Shower is our guest. During the break, we were just talking about, kind of more of the same, how things are probably not going to change, that we've attempted to make some changes. I mean, we, the royal we here on the program have tried to influence some changes, and I think we've done a pretty good job. The Charter of Changes has said, number one, change out the players, and we've done that. We've changed out over the last 5, 6, 7 years. We've changed out 60% of the legislature. Yet things continue to move down a certain path because, in part, there are a handful of players that have remained that are the business as usual guys. And we can't necessarily affect. I mean, I don't broadcast in Sitka, where a lot of this, people aren't hearing the message about what's going on with their senator to know what's really happening. And they just seem to be fat, dumb, and happy and okay. But we do have, red districts here in the Mat-Su. We've got two legislators, in my opinion, Jesse Sumner and David Wilson, who have, again, questionable credentials as conservatives. And I'm wondering about that. So, is there still room to grow, Mike? Is there still changes to be made? Is it all about, presidential primaries and off-year elections? And, what's your take on this?
Look, I'm not going to pick on, especially in the Mat-Su, I know you're mentioning names, and that makes it really hard for me to work with people. If they think I'm talking
it's not
about
you.
them, I'm not.
It's okay. Let me be clear. That's my opinion, not Mike Shower's opinion. So, but let's talk about the ultimate makeup of the legislature from the various districts. What can still change, I guess, is my question.
Right. But here's the point I'm going to make, Mike, and this is kind of important. And when you say that, it's fine. I'm just going to anchor on it because I want anybody that's listening in Juneau, and as we both know, they do, because I've heard this over and over. We don't care what you say. Well, then all they do is talk about what I say. So that you didn't care about it. So when names are mentioned here, and people all the time call them out and say names, of like, what you're doing is putting me into a square corner. Because then they say I didn't talk about them, or if you said something and I didn't defend them, then they get their feelings hurt, and then they don't want to work with me, and then it's my fault that I'm sitting in the minority because I don't do whatever I'm supposed to do the way it's supposed to be, Mike. Right? So, and then your listeners say, "Well, we want to hear names." I'm like, for what? If I stand up for the principles, what we believe in as Republicans or conservative value, what happens? Well, that worked out well. I get stuck in a minority. If names are mentioned, then then they blame me. Then it's my fault. It's not their fault for joining with Democrats, or they want a binding caucus, or that we stand on our principles and they can't rely on our vote for the budget. Well, if it's a bad budget, or you don't follow the law on the PFD, or you force me to commit political suicide, of course that's going to be a problem, right? Like you're talking about these people voting in these districts, like they go vote against the PFD all day long. It never seems to matter. They just get reelected, like you said. So here's my point. I'm saying that for a minute because I want this on the recording. I want staffers that are listening to hear this. I'm not talking about individual legislators. What they do, how they govern, Mike, even if they join with Democrats, that's on them. That's not on me. That's not my fault. That's a choice they made. And their constituents are the ones that need to deal with them. Their constituents, if they don't like what they're doing, are the ones that need to step it up and find somebody to run against them and support them. We say this all the time, but this is one of our constant complaints, isn't it? It's like, well, people get angry, but they don't get angry enough to donate to a good challengers campaign. They don't get angry enough to show up on weekends and walk. Usually you're relying on, like 4, 5, 6 strong volunteers, and everybody else just talks a lot. You don't see them get on there and spread their message on social media. You don't see people step up. And that's kind of what we were talking about in the break, Mike, where you said, well, why are we dealing with the same people? Well, because the average citizen doesn't get involved in elections. They have 1,000 reasons. I'm just as guilty 10 years ago. I complained. I didn't step in. I was busy, right? I'm kind of stepping it up a little more than I probably want to in the last 7 years. But the reality is, Mike, is that, we don't really, as a citizenry, we don't really get involved. We complain. Some of us vote. But like we were saying in the break when the bell rung, it's like, the bell rung. Help me out, Ralphie. That's got a Christmas story, right? But the bell rung. I have to go inside. And the people don't show up. And when you have especially these off-year elections, like this is a good example, Anchorage coming up, right? Los Anchorage, here we go. They purposely put this into an April election cycle. And now it works really to the advantage of the leftist. Why? Because the unions are well left of center, especially, I don't talk about the average union member. A lot of union members like myself I think are average, regular old Americans, love their country, don't want to see a lot of the leftist garbage that the big unions with their money and the leadership support. But they know they're going to give their people a day off to go vote. They're going to give them flyers. They're going to tell them how to vote. And they're going to get their people out to do that. The average worker that wouldn't vote that way, they're stuck working. They don't have anybody helping them out, telling them what to do. They're not getting extra time off from the union. The unions are filling them full of all kinds of propaganda, right? So it's a challenge, Mike. I mean, none of this is meant to be downer. I'm not going, I'm all depressed. No, I mean, I'm going to stay as engaged and encouraging as I can because, well, we didn't, that's the whole thing about millionaires, right? Most of them swing at the bat, like 10 times, and they often strike out 9. Thing about them is they never quit,
Right.
and they keep swinging until they knock one out of the park, and then they're good, And a lot of millionaires and others sometimes went bankrupt multiple times. I think I remember Rush Limbaugh telling me he went bankrupt like 2 or 3 times, before he kind of really established himself and did good. I mean, but he never quit, right? So, I mean, what do you say? Well, Mike, just not worth it. My vote just doesn't count. I just don't care. I'm not going to get, well, not making a choice, Mike, is making a choice. Not getting involved in helping good candidates or holding your candidates accountable when they don't do what they promise they're going to do or govern different than how they campaign, not doing anything, that's a choice. And so Michelle and I are making a choice. It's a painful one. I've looked at, I've spent almost 3 years of our lives away from our house and our kids and our grandkids and other things we'd like to be doing. Almost 3 years of cumulative days we've spent in Juneau. Yeehaw. That's a lot of fun, right? Taking big financial hit, whatever. And if it's his choice, I'm not complaining about it. I'll say that's my point is we're stepping it up and it's painful for our family, but we're trying to make a difference and do the best we can. And it really doesn't take that much, Mike. I mean, I've told people, get churches involved, right? I'm Christian. I'm unabashed about it. I'm not going to apologize. But, imagine if even a quarter of the churches stop saying politics are not what we do here. Mike, that would swing most of the elections in the states in the country because you're talking tens of millions of people, tens of thousands in Alaska, where a lot of pastors, we don't do that. We don't do politics. Or they're afraid, we're a 501c3. We're going to lose our tax exempt status. Wrong. No, you're not. All of that is wrong. That conference I was telling you about early on that Michelle and I came back from a couple months ago. Remember, I was so fired up and all the stuff we were learning.
The wall builder.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing. And we had a national level speaker, that one guy that has, he's argued like a dozen cases in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, maybe one of the most experienced ones and mostly successful in the country right now. And he's like, that's all flat out wrong. He's like, we have the most religious freedoms we've ever had. Pastors and churches can absolutely get involved. And the Supreme Court has ruled that way. Here, we're going through this all again. I know it is, but it's the start of the new year. So, hey, let's start over, right? It's like, do you have a plan? Well, yeah, our plan is to hold legislators accountable. Our plan is to make sure that we stick to our principles and put in amendments and stuff, and people are going to have to take some hard votes. Our plan is to make sure that people see the truth of what's going on, talk about the bills, and the things that are happening out there to keep you aware. And then, hopefully, we will hopefully see some different faces maybe after the November's election. That would be nice. Ones that are going to stick to Republican principles, ones that aren't going to blame, myself and the other 2 minority members for the fact that we're not sitting, in a majority together, and they're going to put away their petty differences about whatever, and allow us to, join together as Republicans and actually govern. Maybe have the freedom to not vote for political suicide. Because like you said, Mike, what did they always require of us? Well, you need to vote for the budget, and that's the binding caucus, and that's how it's going to be. Well, yeah, but if we vote the way you're going to make the budget and the PFD and other things turn out, well, then we're dead in the water in our district. Doesn't matter. You guys can vote however you want. And you're going to get reelected. We can't. You see how that works, Mike? It's just fine for them because they know they're going to get reelected, so they don't care. They want it the way they want it. That's really ultimately why the three of us are in the minority. And we've talked about it over the last year. There's no doubt that's it. Are there some personality conflicts because of what's happened? Yeah, there's a few. There's always going to be. But adults put that stuff aside, Mike, and they move on because it's time to govern. They don't hose the voices of 120,000 people in a state because they had an issue with you 2 years ago or 5 years ago. But they will do that if they can't get the budget they want, because that's the priorities for them, or the money's going to their district. If they can't, rely on your vote. Last time I checked, Mike, my vote doesn't belong to the caucus. It doesn't belong to caucus leadership. It doesn't belong to the Republican Party. My vote belongs to people of my district. And my district supports the full PFD. My district supports a comprehensive fiscal policy. My district supports judicial reform. My district supports election integrity reform. And by the way, since we're discussing that, look at the actions that those Republicans that joined with the Democrats have caused in the Senate. We have a Republican governor that is friendly towards those things I just mentioned. We have a House Republican majority that is friendly, generally, towards the things I just mentioned. That there's 11 Republicans in the Senate, you would think we could get together and get past petty differences in the binding role to focus on some of those things too, and should be friendly toward, except it's not. What they did was they put those 9 Democrats, many of them far left on the political spectrum, in charge. Do you think, Mike, that we're going to get election integrity through the state Senate Affairs Committee where it has to go? When you look at who's in charge, the chairman called my bill a couple of years ago a voter suppression bill. He was in my committee. So you think he's going to let that kind of bill go through? Come on.
Right.
Judicial reform. The Judiciary Committee is run by a far left defense lawyer. And do you think he's going to let judicial reform go through his committee? Most of the policy committees, Mike, are controlled by Democrats. 2 of the 3 finance co-chairs are Democrats. The rules chair is a Democrat, the one that controls the flow of bill. You think you're going to get anything conservative or Republican principle-wise through the body? You're going to get bridge naming bills through. You're going to get committees, where they do like boards and commissions. You'll get those through. You're going to get some moderate things through that either don't mean much of anything or don't do much. You're certainly not going to get anything that the left doesn't like, because the Democrats control the flow of bills and the important stuff in the Alaska State Senate. That's simply the reality, Mike. That's politics. You mentioned names, fine, whatever, but that will be between those people and their voters. That's why I want to be so hardcore about mentioning why I'm not going to do that, because it makes it impossible for me to work down there. And
Right.
I had a long-serving Democrat says, Mike, I don't know how you guys do that. He's like, you conservatives. He's like, man, you guys make one misstep and it's like a landmine. They just slaughter you, right? Conservatives and Republicans, especially certain groups of them, are really good about going after Republicans and other conservatives if they're not conservative enough, or if they don't vote exactly how they want you to, or you don't do 100% on that one thing, that one issue voter, right? Well, those Democrats and those moderate Republicans, they just get away with anything. They can do whatever they want, as we're talking about. And they just he told me that. He's like, oh, yeah, I can do whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to get reelected. It's fine. And I look like, God, I'm like stepping on eggshells. Every radio program, every social media post, everything I say in the legislature, I'm stepping on eggshells. If I don't have the left and the press coming after me, I've got, the people on the far right coming after me, or the right, or I had my caucus. I mean, it's like, goodness gracious. It's like everywhere you turn, one step back. It's like, everywhere we turn, there's the enemy. He's like, and the colonel was like, well, that's great. You can't miss, you're just a target-rich environment. Doesn't matter which way you. So, it's like, it's a daunting challenge, Mike, but it's just what it is, brother. It's politics.
Well,
and as people say, it can be a blood sport.
Okay, I wasn't trying to put you into a corner, man. I apologize.
I know.
I'm just trying to get the
no apologies, Mike. No apologies, because it's a good time to start over in 2024 and put it out there and go, here's why. Here's why we're going to say things this way. Here's what we're doing. It's totally fine. You're a free man, Mike. You got freedom of speech. You can say what you want. I just want people to hear, including staffers and legislators. They always get accused of this, and that's not what I'm doing. If a radio host brings something, that's fine. They can do that. I'm giving the background, the context as we start off 2024. I'm focused on the policy. I'm focused on the bills. Am I going to talk about people's bills? You betcha.
Right.
And the things that are going on.
I got to say, I always find it the weakest intellectual argument when somebody mentions something on a radio show, and just because you didn't come up and personally defend somebody, or maybe you just had no comment on it other than and you didn't even agree with me. You didn't say, oh, he's right. You just kind of bypass it and move on. And they're like, well, you didn't defend me, so therefore you must be against. That's the weakest intellectual argument that I've ever heard on those kind of things. People got to be able to, and a lot of these people won't come on the show to discuss these things. So how else are we supposed to know? It's frustrating in that regard. That's
why I'm just going to leave it, Mike.
Yeah.
We're going to move on, and I'm going to talk about other stuff because that's where my focus is going to be. It's going to be on policy, on bills, on where we need to go to fix things and make things better. That's where I have to focus.
All right. Well, we're going to focus on that in the next segment. I didn't mean to derail that whole segment, but we're going to be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return to more in Mike Shower right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Appropriate liner for leaving that segment.
That's right. It is. That one always cracks me up. Hear the voices.
Well, because
the memories.
It's the truth. I mean, it's the truth. They're listening and they're transcribing everything, and then they're saying, "Look, you hurt my feelings, so therefore you're bad." And I'm just like, you people, if you can't take the criticism, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. And if you
but it's a convenient excuse, Mike.
Yeah.
It is a convenient excuse to shove into the corner those that they don't like, those that hold the line of their principles, those that won't go along to get along, those that don't promise their vote, as unethical and illegal as that should be, to them when they want it. And so it's an excuse when you have a smaller group of people that are going to plant the flag in the ground on principle and aren't going to bend on that. When they say, "Oh, they don't compromise there," I remember one old legislator go, "Oh, it's their way or the highway." I'm like, no, actually, you're projecting. It's your way or the highway. We're just not going down your highway and you don't like it. So they will look for any excuse they can get to minimize us, to marginalize us, to shove us in a corner so they don't have to deal with us. Mike, they talked about this. I'm going to bring this up too when we get back in the radio as we talk about policies and where things are going, is that, it's like, well, you guys didn't vote for the budget. I'm like, that's not true. One of the Senate Finance co-chairs and the Senate president said that in the early press conference last year. Well, we just can't rely on them for the vote in the budget. And one of the reporters, I forget which one, actually called and said, well, didn't Shower, Hughes, and Myers vote for the budget last year? The previous, I don't know. We'll get back to you on that. Yeah, actually, we did. It was the very people sitting on the dice in front of the reporters that didn't vote for the budget the previous year, Mike. Funny how that works. That excuse didn't fly far.
Right.
It's just back to political suicide. They always require us they want to know that we're willing to commit political suicide to join that caucus because they want a binding rule.
Right.
And they know places like the Matsu and the Kenai Peninsula, those legislators aren't going to last long. It's something they know, Mike. They've seen it. The history is there. They know we're not going to survive very long because of what I was talking about, how conservatives treat each other and attack. I'm looking at some of these groups, on the right side of the political spectrum. I'm like, why aren't you attacking moderate Republicans? Why aren't you attacking Democrats? You attack the ones that vote and are more conservative. They may not be exactly what you like, but they are certainly far more so than the moderate Republicans or left of center ones, because we got them, and certainly more so than a lot of the Democrats. And we got some far, far left, communist, Marxist, socialist, progressive, whatevers in the, Alaska legislature, but they don't touch them. So it's a problem for us too, Mike, because, most of the people listening to radio, they're either independent, libertarian, conservative, Republican, whatever. And, we tend to eat our own. And so how do you expect a legislator to go down there and navigate that minefield when you don't give them any wiggle room? As soon as they make the slightest misstep, you're out, start over, send in somebody new. Great. In the meantime, you got the old guard that's been there for 20, 30, 40 years. They know where the bones are buried. They know how to navigate it. And you keep sending rookies down to deal with the old guard that knows what they're doing. And you expect them to win? when and it's not like, there's a super majority of new guys showing up that all agree. It's a handful, right? And you still got to have, as the saying goes, 21, 11, and 1 plus 3 on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Because we always seem to forget the courts.
Yeah.
And we don't, Michael. We keep sending people down because we cycle out bodies because we're not happy enough with them. So be it. That's politics again, but that's hard to go against the guys that have been there for 30 or 40 years. They're not stupid, Mike. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing.
So, and they'll sell their soul, right? They'll join with anybody. They'll do whatever. They don't care.
They just want to retain the power. Yeah. They just want to retain the power. Yeah. That's exactly what it's about.
Tough nut to crack, my friend.
So some of these guys, we just have to wait out, and that's the thing. I mean, like, I think Stevens will be done this time. And I just don't think he's going to continue on and everything else, but that's it. When the only thing they have to do is, die or retire, that's the two choices. You're like, okay, so could we just wait it out and hopefully we minimize the damage between now and then? I mean, is that all we can do?
Well, I mean, think about the Don Young effect, right? I mean, I've mentioned on the program before, I was very disappointed in Don that he never gave up the ghost. He did not allow somebody else, and I say allow, to step, from the Republican side, to step up and mentor them and endorse them and get them there so they could start building some experience and a base and be around for a while. Don had the Friday Night Light syndrome. He couldn't give up the game. And he died in office, and he gave us this mess. I mean, the reality is, what you really want to talk about, Don Young gave us Mary Peltola because he never stepped down and allowed somebody to step in. So you can say what you want, but the reality is Don Young gave us Mary Peltola. We would have at least a Republican, even if it wasn't as conservative as we would like. We would have a Republican had Don stepped down 3, 4, 5 years ago, and the dean of the House gotten behind somebody, said, "You're my man" or "You're my woman," and got him in there. But he couldn't do it, Mike.
Yeah, couldn't give it up. Couldn't give it up. Yeah, and that's the power. That's the problem. Power corrupts, and in that regard, and you just can't step away from it. It's hard to relinquish the reins once you have it. And I could see that again because you're convinced that you know better than everybody else how this needs to play out. All right, we're coming up to it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Okay, final segment here. Mike Schauer is our guest. We ran a little bit amok there, and I didn't get to the points that I wanted to talk about. And I know, Mike, you wanted to bring a couple things up. Before we go too much farther, I guess I should ask you about the election integrity bill. And I know one of the things you were waiting for was this report, which you've been asking for, are we going on 2 years now? You've been asking for this report?
2 years.
3 years?
Since July of 20.
20. Okay, so 3.5 years.
About 4.
Yeah. And so any movement on that? Nope. Nothing.
Nope. That report apparently in Alaska is going to be something like the Jeffrey Epstein document. It's going to be the most secure document in Alaska because nobody can get their hands on it unless it's completely redacted. I don't know what to do, Mike. I've asked everybody up the food chain that can't get it. I mean, the only version I've ever seen, I had to sign my life away on a non-disclosure agreement, and I'm not about to do that and then have them hold that over my head. Because I'm pretty sure they're doing that to the person that wrote the report as well, is kind of what I gather. So, no movement. Can't get it. Doesn't seem to, like I said, it's become as far as I'm concerned, it's become the Epstein document in Alaska. It's just like, you're not going to get your hands on it. And there's not much movement as far as the list of things that I provided to people that could be done, regulatory wise or policy wise. It didn't need legislative movement. Things like the ERIC system, we could be out of it. Less than half the states are in it now. And it's just a contract. You could just drop it. And we don't need to be in that thing. There's a lot of other alternatives we had for getting information. And, you still have a lot of acolytes from the last administration in there and some very left of center people. And that's the deep state working, Mike, where they go, we're not going to do that. We're just going to wait you out. Oh, yeah, I know there's a new director, but, they're telling the new director how great things are and everything's fine. And what does the new director know? Oh, they say it's okay, and I'm like, no, it's not. We're still overinflated rolls, worse than the nation, and yet we can't fix that. So there's a lot, Mike, that goes with it. Long answer, short question. Don't have the report. Doubt I'm ever going to see it at this point, or at least a non-redacted version that takes out all 18 recommendations are blacked out. Well, that helps me a lot as a legislator do my job. So, and like I said, the thank you very much, Senate Supermajority, the State Affairs and Judiciary Chair aren't about to let an election integrity bill go through that is not something the Democrats and the left wants. So you're kind of dead in the water that way. You got the House trying, but anything they move over is going to, die in the Senate. And of course, anything the Senate sends over is going to be a left of center document, and it's probably going to die in the House. That's just politics again, the way it works. So I don't expect any movement there because of who the committee chairs are. I mean, just look at the committees, Mike. Look how they're stacked. So yeah, not going to happen. Judicial reform, not going to happen. Repeal of ranked choice voting. Senate President himself said they're not interested in it. A lot of them like it, so that's not going to happen. And this isn't to be downer. I'm not discouraged at all. Like I know some of your listeners are. This is the playing field, right? We got to be honest. We got to acknowledge the battlefield as it is. But what do you do, right? Well, we do part of what we're doing right now. We talk about it. We educate people. We tell them, hey, folks, this is what's going on. This is what's at stake. Try to get some people, maybe a few more fired up to work on campaigns and help hold people accountable. That's part of the strategies. The second part is education, like we're doing now on bills and policy. Tell people what's happening, who did what, how did we vote, getting that out there with them, right? So those are important things that we have to do. And some of it is in the citizens' hands, Mike. I mean, maybe I'm hoping here shortly we're going to get an announcement that ranked choice voting opponents have been victorious. It sounds like they are. I'm hoping they are. They were saying victory over the last 2 weeks that they had enough signatures. There's encouraging stuff, Mike, if the people just do it. It's a pretty small organization, and it was outfunded significantly, just like we were those of us that opposed ranked choice voting when it got on the ballot. Because I put a lot of time into it in the last 6 months, but we still didn't have enough money and momentum to stop it. But we were outspent 100-1. And when you include the big unions were jumping in with their people and money, supporting it, plus all the outside dark money, it was crazy. But that may get on the ballot. And I'm sure that if it does, it's going to be defeated. That is a national level victory, Mike, if Alaska does that. Why do I say that? Because there's a whole bunch of other states, as Michelle and I heard at that conference, that are having the same ranked choice voting people trying to push it in other states now because they see it as a way of turning the country blue.
Right. They're using
And
Alaska. They're using
it.
Alaska as the example. Oh, look at how well they did in Alaska. Look at what happened there. This is perfect. This is what they need.
Mike, if we vote that down, if that makes it on the ballot, if the lieutenant governor gets that certified on the ballot and the signatures are there, Mike, that is a national level victory for us because that's going to stop their narrative of how great it is. A state that just enacted it a couple of years ago has already repealed it because the majority of the people don't like it. And it's a vote suppression scheme, which it is. And all of a sudden it derails the national effort. Then you're going to have to fight the national popular vote, right? Because there's a bill for that in the Alaska House as well, which we will right now. That's not going anywhere short term. But these are just the things that are happening, Mike. They never stop. That's why I said we can't stop. We need to train up the next generation. Always something I'm looking for, right? Good candidates. One of the ones that announced down in the Kenai Peninsula is a friend of mine, for Ben Carpenter's sake, as Ben Carpenter's running for the Senate, is a friend of mine that I flew F-22s with. Good guy, conservative, solid. And so encouraging other good people to step up and run, but seeing that some people are still going, you know what, I'm going to throw my name in the hat. It's worth it. I got to fight for this. I got to fight for my community, my state, my country, and people are still stepping up. But you and I need that, right? People on your program that are listening right now, you and I, we've been in this battle for a while. You longer than me, but you get tired. And sometimes you need new people saying, you know what, I got your back, man. I'm going to step up. We had the town hall the other night pre-session, and most of the same people were there. There's some new ones. There's a few people yelling, at you about stuff, and I get that, and that's fine. But there's also the people come up and say, hey, thanks for what you're doing. I know it's hard. I know you guys are sacrificing, but we really appreciate it. And sometimes, like I say, that's important too, because you get beat down, right? And you see comments even on your program here, and most of the time people are so negative, and that's hard to take over and over again. I don't know how, and love or hate Trump's irrelevant, but I don't know how the guy does it. He is attacked so relentlessly, so viciously compared to any president, I think, in our history. And it's like you do just like water off a duck. It just rolls off his back. I'm like, but that's hard, Mike. It's hard when you get beat down all the time. Sometimes you got to refresh your tank. Sometimes it's nice. You got to recharge the battery. And some people giving you encouraging words and saying, hey, I know it ain't perfect. I know you haven't been able to do everything you like. I know you've been hit a lot, but hey, thanks for what you're doing. It helps. And it's also great to see new people stepping up. When new people show up at Republican, district committees or at town halls, or some new legislators throw their ring in the hat and go, I'm in. I'm going to give it a shot. This is worth it. That's encouraging, Mike. I mean, so this isn't meant to be. I mean, there's some things we got to talk about, and there's going to be some times we get upset and we get down on some topics. But at the same time, Mike,
Right.
it's the start of a new year. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to just jump out of the ring. There's too much at stake.
Right.
I just talked about how great it was to have my kids and grandkids. Man, that was awesome. Well, why am I doing this, Mike? For them.
Right.
I don't need this. This is a pain in the
patootie,
rear
right?
end.
Yeah. Well, down to the
it's more of a duty.
Yeah, we're down to the last 90 seconds here, so I'll give you a chance to summate and wrap up here for expectations for next week's start.
Some new bills in play, but they're not going to go very far, most likely. It's going to be, I think it's just, bottom line, folks, it's going to be business as usual. I think status quo. You're going to see a budget that they're going to say we can't afford, but we're going to take the PFD to afford it and do it anyways. We really need to talk about this, but we've got weeks coming up. The defined benefit bill, Mike, the one, I think it's Senator Giesel's bill, that's going to crush us. That's billions of dollars. Representative McCabe threw it out, said it was going to be on the chart, I think, $9.2 billion potentially over the next 10 years. That's before Senator Tobin's $250 million education bills added to the mix. And Mike, that's your PFD and then some. You want to know the PFD is going? I told you that's coming, folks. You want to see taxes after the pay? That's coming. So these are things we need to discuss because there's a lot at stake in this session if some of these things pass. So we'll keep talking. I know we talked our way to fill your program this hour, but it went really fast.
It's the fastest 2 hours in radio, my friend. Mike Shower, our guest. Folks, we're out of time. We will continue this discussion tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. I mean, there's some big dollar bills coming in there. $1 billion a year is the fiscal note on that defined benefits bill. And that's just the first one. And I'm sure when you get down into it and you look at the knock-on effects and everything else, it's going to be insane. So I guess my last question to you, Mike, is if you were a betting man, put your Kreskin turban on here and your crystal ball, whip it out. What do you think for session length? 90 days? 120. I mean, they want to get in and get out like a duck mating, man. They just want to be like, we're done.
You're a funny guy. You're a funny GI, as you used to say. No, Mike, we're never going to make 90 days. The only time I've ever seen us make 90 was when they were afraid of dying from a pandemic scare. And they all ran home as fast as we could, because everybody thought, oh my God, it's Ebola, we're all going to die. So that's the only time. So apparently it takes a little tiny bug to scare us enough to live within the 90-day law. But no, we'll stay. We'll probably take it to the last few days. Why do they do that, Mike? It's their MO. They know it's successful. They put pressure on people. Eventually people cave and they get what they want. So you think they're going to do anything different than what they would do? Like I said, that's the old guard. They've been doing this for decades. They know how to play the game. So, it'd be the same old stuff. It'd be the same argument, PFD against everything else. And here we go. So I don't anticipate any changes. I think it's going to be the same old playbook. That's what you're going to see. Time compression
is a weapon, right? That's what we see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's effective. Hey, can't blame them, Mike. Well, I mean, if it works, they're using it, and they're very savvy about it. So you can say what you want about them, but they know what they're doing. It works. Mike Shower, thank you, brother. It's good to hear from you. Thank you for coming on board. I doubt we'll talk to you next week, right? Unless you want to give us an update on next Wednesday. I don't know if you'll be ready for that or not, but we'd love to hear from you. There won't be any changes from what we said today, but we'll see. I mean, I'll be down in Juneau, obviously, but maybe, and a lot of this is already on top of my head we can talk about, but maybe we could get started next Wednesday and just chat. not because of anything that's going to have happened within a day or so. I mean, there always could be, I guess, but we can start talking about some of the important bills. I'm not going to focus on the little, the innocuous ones, but we do need to start getting into the public consciousness where some of these bills are putting pressure on legislators for things like those that are going to just break the bank. Get it out there so the governor, hopefully is paying attention to it. I know he is. And, he's our ultimate hammer at the end. Some of these things, I hope he's going to come down. If they squeak through the House, hopefully he's going to hammer them down. So we'll see. But we should talk next Wednesday, I assume, unless, like I said, something weird changes. I'll be there, or there's no airplane to fly on to get into Juneau. I guess always an option. But
well, that's what they
we'll
make.
see.
That's what they make duct tape for. It's all I'm saying. Just duct tape those panels closed on the outside to make sure. All right. Well,
it's speed tape, Mike. I've seen it on fighters. It's got to work on airliners.
Exactly. All right, my friend. Well, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
All right. See you guys.
All right. Thanks so much, folks. We are out of time. We will see you tomorrow. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Be kind. Love one another. And live well. We will see you then.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.